Hey y'all, welcome back to the Laid Back Homestead. I'm Crystal, and today is an exciting day for me because we are going to be breaking down our grow bag garden and replacing it with our hydroponic. So I got these Dutch buckets for Christmas, and that's what we're going to be setting up. It is a very warm, close to 80 degrees, if not over, down here in Southeast Louisiana, Zone 9A. And it's just really time we get this going so I can plant out for spring. So the current grow bag situation, you can see some things are still hanging on. Got some carrots in here and a couple of brassicas that aren't going to do much. The ones that actually have something growing in them, like this guy, I may actually move over to the other part of my yard. But these bags have served me well. You can see they were on a watering system. That is one thing I will say. Down here, it gets way too hot for grow bags to not be on some form of automatic watering. The issue I ran into was that even though they're on a watering timer, they're always dripping, right? Which, I mean, makes sense. It's a bag. But you can see it's always dripping, and because my yard slopes, it slants down, this always is just swampy out here. So after a quick trip to Home Depot to pick up a few extra supplies, we are ready to go. So my husband actually had a great idea. Instead of putting the bags on the other side of the yard or getting rid of them completely, moving them to this side, and then I can still grow in them. Now, they will not be on automatic watering on this side, so I will be very cautious about what I plant in there. Got it cleaned off. You can see the water just from us washing the bricks and how this has turned into a swampy mess. So, I don't know if you can tell this or not, but we are not growing on a straight surface. We are growing on a curved surface. So we are actually going to bend the pipe using a heat gun to get it to fit the curvature of our area. What lengths are you marking?
1 foot.
Is that how far they'll be spaced apart?
That's the plan, yeah. You don't need much, just need a little.
The hose just cools it off so it sets fast.
Yep.
And you're just trying to keep it as level as possible with...
Trying to match the radius. It's okay if it burns a little, it really doesn't matter.
And just when you start to smell it, just takes a little squeeze. All right, now we have our main pipe all bent to fit the space. We did use 2 pipes with a coupler in between and had to cut just a small piece off to fit here, but obviously that's dependent on the space you're using. This is going to be our water reservoir for this build out. It's 57 gallons because it will have double the buckets. That one I have there is 27 gallons, and that manages 10 buckets just fine. But I really didn't want to have to be out here doing a whole bunch of nutrient top-ups. So for the amount of buckets I have here, we went with a much larger size. Here are the buckets. So we have 17 buckets in all. They should be able to handle 2 plants apiece. So now we have growing space for 34 plants here. as opposed to the grow bags, which I had about 18 to 20 in this space. And that's about all it could handle. All right, so we laid out the bucket, and then we're just gonna mark where the drains are. And that's where we will have to cut little holes into the drainage pipe.
You could use a paddle bit or a spade bit. That'll work fine. It just makes a cleaner hole.
Okay, so day 2. We took a break yesterday because we were missing some pieces, and we had to pivot with our original design idea. And I'll show you why, but I think this is going to be for the best. Originally, we were going to have the water reservoir and return be on this end of the build. But because of the natural slope in my yard, the lowest point is actually somewhere right in the middle. So what we're going to do is we're going to have that be our return and pump from the reservoir. So overall, this should be the best design idea, and it will prevent overflowing, because when we had filled up the buckets with water, that part of the pipe was going to be overflowing if we had our reservoir all the way on the end. So this is going to be the design build. Now in the future, and if you build this yourself, you would build your structure, your platform structure to hold your buckets, and you would be in control of the slope. We're just having to pivot because we're using what we have here rather than building a separate standalone structure. But at our other property, when we finally move there and expand there, because I will still continue to grow hydroponically no matter what, we'll be able to build our own structures and be more in control of the slope from the get-go.
Notice we don't put any glue. It's not under pressure and the water doesn't leak out. All right, now we're going to put a hole so that can pass through. All right, I'm using a 2 1/8 Forstner bit. You can probably use a 2-inch. Just measure the end of your pipe somewhere around 2-inch. This is the one I have. So I'm going to put a piece of wood behind it just so I have something solid to kind of drill into. All right, now that we got all the buckets set up, these are the components that are going to go in or connect to the buckets so that we can grow out of them. So first thing that needs to go in is this little critical part. It usually comes with the buckets. It's 2 pieces. This is it kind of goes in the inside as an overflow, prevents the roots from clogging the discharge port on the actual bucket.
Yeah, don't skip this one. It's very important.
It's very important. We've learned from experience. Then after you put those in each bucket, these are 5-gallon paint filters for 5-gallon buckets. You know, for painting your house, you can buy these real cheap off Amazon. It's a 25 pack. Then we've got some 1/2-inch tubing, some 1/4-inch tubing. This pump, also off of Amazon. It's a 800-gallon per hour pump, and that'll provide the water to all the buckets. And then each bucket is going to get a 1/4-inch tubing off of the main trunk line of the 1/2-inch tubing. So you need a couple extra fittings for that. This is a 1/2-inch to 1/4-inch conversion connector. And because we're running our hydroponic system in the middle, I needed a T. So this is a 1/2-inch T, which is basically the 1/2-inch line is going to come out of the pump to the T and then go both directions down the buckets. And then they'll branch into each bucket out of this 1/4-inch tube, and they'll be they'll feed each bucket through here. So that's our kind of setup of parts. Now we'll get them installed. You know, so as we talked, these are the pieces that come with the buckets to keep the roots from clogging the holes. They kind of slip right in, just like that, and should sit all the way down. Yep, and you just make sure you have one like that in each bucket. So this is the filter bag that for the 5-gallon buckets. Just use that to keep the vermiculite or the perlite all in one place rather than floating in through the system. So you just drop that in and it'll stretch over the bucket just fine. And then when you're ready, you fill it up with your perlite and be good to go.
So you also will need a hole in your reservoir for the pump tubing.
This is a one inch.
And he's using a 1-inch.
So you need the tubing for that fits. It fits that tube. It's going to come with 2 sizes, actually 3 sizes. Just use the one that's for 1/2-inch tube, which I believe is that one. And screw that in. So after you screw in the 1/2-inch fitting, you can really disregard the others. Those aren't necessary. Comes with some little feet to help it stick down to the bottom of the bin. Just slip those on. Pretty simple. Now after you get that connected, probably have enough room to fit the cord and the tube through this 1-inch hole. So alright, so just gonna fish that through that hole and connect it to the top of the pump. Just like that. That's it pretty much for in here. Now we just fish this out so it works. I'm going to run the tubing around the back side of all the buckets. So I'm just going to allow the tubing to come up about right there. And then that's where I'm going to cut it. And I'll put this T on. Scissors would work better. Okay, so here's kind of the T fitting. You see we cut it right at the back side of the buckets where the tubing will sit. And these have a compression fitting on it, so you just unscrew that. You fish that down the tube first. Then you kind of push fit that onto the end of that. And then you slide the compression fitting out. And you just tighten it. It's just threaded. Just like that. And then once that's done, these are going to sit towards the back end of the bucket. So next I'm going to add another piece of tubing. And then I'm going to cut it in between each of 2, for every 2 buckets. There's going to be a T that has the reducer line that goes to both of the buckets. So we'll see what that looks like now. So we'll start here. Another little piece. Tighten that down. And I'm not using a tape measure or anything, but it looks like about right there. It's going to be where I need it. So I'm just going to take that. Got me some snips this time. Cut it just like that. All right, now that we've cut that, we're going to put that extra reducer on with the quarter inch fitting. That's going to go in between every 2 buckets. So take the compression fitting off. Push it on. Oh, put the compression fitting on first, then you push it on. And then you just snug that up. And it sits just like this. And you just keep going. Add one in between every 2. So on the last one on this end between these 2 buckets, after the bucket, I'm just going to add an extra extra little piece of tubing to add a valve. That way, if you want to drain the system into a bucket, you'll be able to do that. All right, and this is the valve I'm gonna just put on the end here so she can kick the system on, put a bucket here, and drain any water out if she needs to. It'll just flow through the rest of the system, but it'll eventually all get out. I'm gonna put a little hole. This is just a 1/4-inch drill bit or something right into the rim so I have something to zip tie. Zip tie the tube to hold it. If not, it just kind of flops all over the place.
Alrighty, we have that all set up, zip tied down, keeping everything in place.
All right, so now we're gonna put the jumpers to each of the buckets. We use this really flexible 1/4-inch tubing here, and we'll leave all these links in the description below. But essentially, you want to make a jumper from each of those 1/2-inch to 1/4-inch tees into the 2 buckets that they're feeding. So you're going to need a 1/4-inch tee, just like that. And I've already pre-cut up a bunch of little pieces for our setup. Our buckets are pretty close, so I've got like roughly a 7-inch jumper in between each bucket, and then I used 7.5-inch jumpers into each bucket. So let me show you what that looks like. So I'll take it, I'll just press these in. These are not super fun to do, but essentially we'll press one in, press the next one in, and then we're going to hook the last one, which is the jumper portion that goes in between. And for our build, we have 8 sets like this. Now we'll show you how to install it. All right, so as we mentioned, we made these little 2-bucket jumpers, and we're just going to tie them into the 1/4-inch tee right here. We'll do that 8 more times, and then we can fill the buckets with perlite.
We went ahead, got these finished. Not gonna lie, that was the hardest part of the entire build, was putting the tubing onto here. I kind of wish we would have started it ahead of time, just because it causes like finger fatigue, but we got it done. And now we are filling up the reservoir. I am not putting nutrient solution in here because I am not planting out in here just yet. So I'm gonna run this to make sure the whole system works. And I'm actually gonna run it, I think, with bleach water just to give it a good thorough cleaning out. So I also have some clay pebbles. They came with another hydroponic kit. I think the only benefit to them is that they help weigh down your perlite. So we're going to use them because we have them, but I'm not really sure if it's completely necessary. I don't know. Maybe I'll run an experiment this year and leave 1 or 2 buckets without the clay pebbles just to see if it's something that you really need to have. Well, guys, it's been a very interesting 2 days, but I'm glad to say that we got that done. I wouldn't say break down our grow bags. We ended up just moving them to another part of the yard to hopefully continue growing in them. And then we got our hydroponic system set up. I do still have 8 DWC buckets to assemble. We're not quite sure where they're going to go yet. We have some ideas, but we moved our green stock over to its new home, which soon I'll be planting that out as well. I'm trying to revamp it so that I can actually use it and actually love it. Thank you all so much for coming along with us. Next week I'll be planting them out because we are officially going to be past our last frost date, or like right up on it. But regardless, spring is here. So thank you all for hanging out. If you like this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. If you're into gardening and homesteading content, I encourage you to subscribe. And until next time, stay blessed.